So unfortunately, the worst has just been announced for Girls Frontline 2, and apparently the game is gonna launch with 2 limited time banners. For some reason, usually whenever a gacha game comes out, it usually comes out with only one banner, you know, releasing just one character. That way you have enough time to actually get that one character while you're playing the game regularly. But this time they are actually releasing the game with 2, pretty much forcing you to actually choose one of them and actually just abandon the other one, which honestly is kind of ridiculous. I don't know why they decided to do this. It's a pretty shitty move, but unfortunately it is what it is. So most people might be wondering what is the best character to go for in this situation. And I found this spreadsheet in one of the discords, and fortunately this does have a lot of information about all the characters in the CN version. And I've been looking through the skill sets for Ullrid and Suomi, which are the 2 characters that are coming out, and Suomi will definitely be the better option to go for here. Ullrid does actually look like a very strong character, but Suomi just looks way better in all aspects. So I'm pretty sure the safest option here, the safest bet, is to go for Suomi. But in any case, I'd like to go through both of their skill sets just so you guys can actually have a good idea of what they can actually do. Of course, I'll also leave this spreadsheet in the description. That way you can actually just check it in your own time, because there is a lot of information in this spreadsheet. So I do actually recommend actually looking through them. And that way you can actually understand quite thoroughly what each character does. And in case you'd like to check other characters, you can just check them all down here as well. But in any case, let's very quickly go through Ullrid. Let's of course skip her basic attack, because the basic attack is mostly the same for every character. It's just a single target ranged attack that deals a small amount of damage. It doesn't really do anything else. It's just a very normal attack. Now her first skill basically, it's a melee attack, as you can see over here. It even says in the description. Melee attacks, in case you guys don't know, do ignore cover, so they do actually have that going for them. But also besides that, this basically deals some damage and also makes it so she can actually move afterwards after she actually deals some damage. This also applies a debuff on the target called Prey Mark, and basically what this does is whenever the enemy moves, if the enemy is somewhat close to Ullrid, the enemy will take some damage at the end of their turn, of course. You can check all the effects over here at the top, where it has like a list of the effects that a character can actually use. There's also this little section here called Vertebra Upgrade 3. This is basically the dupe system. In the global version it will be called Fortification, which is way easier to say, to be honest. But basically, if we get 3 dupes, you can actually unlock this. But since most people are not gonna go for that, I'll be skipping that because it's not really applicable to everybody. So going through her second skill, it's also a melee attack. And this melee attack gives her the ability to actually attack again in case she doesn't actually kill the enemy. And in case she does have this expansion key, which is like part of the leveling up system, she can actually activate this skill like 3 times. And of course, as long as she actually has the contamination gauge. This is basically an energy system. I'll just call the contamination gauge energy because it's way easier to understand. But as long as she has the energy for it, she can actually keep attacking if the enemy doesn't die, for a maximum of 3 times, of course. And her ultimate is basically just an AoE ult that gets more damage if she has more of this stack called Hunter's Talent. And she can actually also get camouflage for 1 turn, and camouflage is basically a passive, not a passive, well, just a buff that makes it so she can't be targeted by other enemies as long as you actually have teammates on your team. So if she's not like alone in the battlefield, the enemies will target your enemy, not your enemies, your teammates, instead of targeting Ullrid. And of course she gets the Hunter's Talent with her passive whenever she attacks an enemy, and this also increases her energy gauge by 1 point. I should also note that she also gets camouflage automatically if she is below 30% HP, so that way she does have somewhat of a better survivability than the usual. So overall, a really strong DPS, but honestly, the game already has other really good DPSs in the name or in the form of Xiongju, or whatever her name is, the Chinese girl. This girl is part of the standard banner. She is one of the most, if not the best character in the standard banner. She is kind of ridiculous. I remember using her in the beta. She basically uses a lot of coordinated attacks, so she's basically just attacking all the time. She's incredibly good. She's incredibly powerful. So in case you do get Xiongju, which honestly most people will be able to get eventually because she is part of the standard banner, you most likely won't need Ullrid because you already have a very strong DPS. And now going over Suomi. Suomi is just kind of ridiculous, to be honest. She is not a DPS. She is a support character. Her first skill is a very strong single target ability, and it can't crit, but also the important part of this skill is reducing the enemy stability point by a buttload, like an incredible amount. around for up to 10 stability points, because the base stability damage of the skill is 4, and she can also get an extra 6 if she has all her allies around herself. So she really shreds stability really easily. And in case you guys don't know, if you do remove the character or the enemy stability, they get less defense and they can't get into cover. So they just die. They basically just die. Her second skill is a single target shield that she can give to one ally. The shield is incredibly strong. I'll go over it in a little bit, but this is basically a mini version of her ult. But basically she gives a shield, and this shield will basically double the character's HP. So they get a huge amount of survivability. Besides that, they also get an extra defense buff, so they take even less damage. And if they're below 80% HP, if you have this key, they can even recover some stability. That way they don't get into stability break and don't get their defense reduced. This skill is basically whenever you find, or whenever you like kind of mess up and you have one of your allies in the middle of a lot of enemies, just use this on that ally and they won't die, basically. It's a really good utility skill. And just like I mentioned, her ultimate is that, but even better, because it's on everybody around her. So she deals, or she gives a shield that doubles the amount of HP of everybody around herself. On top of that, it even makes them take less damage because of this Frost Guard shield. And it even removes 1 debuffs, and in case they're taunted, it makes them not taunted anymore. And also, this is actually worth mentioning. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the fortification stuff because most people won't be getting duplicates of the same character, but in case you do decide to get a duplicate of Suomi, it makes the ultimate heal by a lot. Because in case you guys haven't noticed, she doesn't really heal like at all or that much, because her healing is on her passive and it's only 5% of her Suomi's HP. But if you do get her first fortification, she heals by a lot. And that on top of all the shields she gives, she becomes incredibly good. Like stupidly powerful. Your team basically doesn't die. It's kind of ridiculous. She really makes the game like easy mode, to be honest. I'll definitely be going for Suomi whenever the game comes out. And I do recommend you guys to do the same, because she is incredibly strong. And of course, going over her passive, she does heal everybody around her every time she does an action. And she even recovers 2 points of energy every turn, which is kind of pretty damn good. The healing does get stronger if allies are under 50% HP, but it's just 10% of Suomi's max HP. So it's not really a lot, but it's something, of course. Probably most often than not, it won't be much of a problem because her shields are just that ridiculous. And also besides that, she also increases the critical damage of someone around herself if that someone attacks an enemy. So yeah, overall, Suomi is kind of ridiculous, makes the game incredibly easy, and will most likely be one of the best characters in the game. So yeah, that's been it for this video. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. I know a lot of people have been stressing out about the double banner situation, and trust me, it is pretty bad. I hope they don't like keep releasing double banners for a little bit after this one, because it would be kind of I'm guessing they're trying to catch up to the CN version because it's just a year apart, so it might be possible, but who knows. But in any case, I hope you guys found this helpful. As always, thank you so much for the memberships, and of course, I'll see you all in the next video.